So the next thing is let's look at the compliance frameworks. So you've got your AI in place, you've got your governance committee in place, and you want to start actually selling your AI tooling to the world. You want to start going and saying, we have this tool, we have this way of working. Even for your customers, we are now using AI, let's say, to produce our training manuals, or we're using AI to do analysis of our data and work out what is the best way of actually giving you a responsive service. You need to disclose that you're using AI to your customers. If they're going to do that, you also then need to make sure you're aware of the compliance frameworks. Compliance frameworks are adapting. They're modifying. AI is a changing space. So what you want to do is be aware of what you're doing. SOC 2, I would say, is critical. Always make sure you go for SOC 2 as soon as you possibly can. It's going to produce a way of working. It's going to produce a way of understanding who your vendors are. It's going to give you a way of checking your risks. It's overhead, but to me, I think it improves the quality and the way you work in your company, and it gives you a good way of monitoring, especially if you use something like Vanta or Struts or one of the other Vanta or compliance vendors out there. They have tools to actually do the monitoring for you. And there's actually a couple of really good startups. I think one of the attendees here, Margaret Devor, is coming up with a really good risk management framework. So reach out to her and make sure that you can actually talk to her, and she will help you, guide you with some of these risk questions. And then you've got your emerging acts. Sorry about the cat running by there. We got your EU Act. They're trying to build out an all-encompassing system of how to actually control, contain, and monitor the whole way things work. Let me just quickly go. And then vendor specific, if you're healthcare, you need to have HIPAA. And also, if you're using any healthcare diagnostic products or any healthcare related products, you also got your FDA approval. If you're doing your FDA, SOC 2 helps you immeasurably, even though unfortunately the two standards aren't linked. The bulk of the work you do for SOC 2 will drive you for FDA. There's one company I worked for, we got them SOC 2 and we were able to get, they've just finally got their FDA approval. It took a year to go in, but they got their FDA because we had SOC 2 in place, because we had various mechanisms in place. They're now a very good, secure, FDA approved diagnostic AI tooling vendor now. And then you got your voluntary standards. So let's quickly go into what they actually do.
I have one question, David. So is it realistic to retrofit AI controls into existing SOC 2 or GDPR programs, or do you think companies are underestimating the effort?
If you're following a standard CI/CD, if you're following standard process control, if you're doing SOC 2, you'll have to retrofit. If you are SOC 2, you're going to have to put it into your system. So, but I mean, in terms of the measurement control, AI depends on your data. If you've already got SOC 2, you've already got SOC 2 applying to your data systems.
Yeah.
You've got your CI/CD. Your SOC 2 is already going to cover your CI/CD.
That's true.
All you're basically going to do is probably add a different set of risks to it. You're going to add a different set of vendor selection. So you've got your vendor support, your vendor, so your different types of vendors that you're going to have for your AI. You've got more risks being added to it. There is a higher chance your risk for exploitation of data has probably gone up by having AI. But again, your SOC 2 controls, it's all covered under SOC 2. I would say it's going to have to be done if you are SOC 2. And if you're doing SOC 2, build it in from the get-go. It will really help you work. And yeah, I'm actually a very strong advocate of SOC 2, as you can probably tell. I found it when I deployed it for one of my companies, and we got them up to speed. Our way of working, the amount of noise that we had in communication between teams dropped. The noise dropped, but the communication increased because all of a sudden we had policies, we had procedures in place. They were very simple procedures. We built it out with a 2-man team. It took us 6 months to get it working, 3 months of monitoring to get it down to the 100% coverage under Vanta. Then we had the auditor come in. They did 2 audits. And so within 9 months, we had SOC 2 certification. And it was fast, aggressive. We had Cobalt help us do that. And Vanta was the application tool we did for that system. So there are various companies that can help you with SOC 2. And so there are ways. So reach out, talk to Usman. He'll be able to guide you as well on some of these internal controls. Anyway, carry on, Usman. So.
And if you don't mind describing the company's size and everything, just to get an estimate for the amount of effort that it took for that size of company, 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, so the 6 to 12 months, we were a 55-person company. Vanta have a threshold of 50 users in their company where you go up and license fee once you exceed 50. We negotiated with them to keep us in because we were 5 people above. But again, in terms of the workload you're doing, if you're doing any development, if you're doing any,
it was a SaaS company, like they were keeping data.
Yeah, we were keeping data. We had SaaS information. We also had SaaS tools. So one of the tooling was a medical triage system for imaging, and so we had really strict GDPR, health HIPAA controls we had to put in place. So we did SOC 2 with HIPAA. By the time we finished our SOC 2, we were 75% complete on ISO 27001. So we could have gone and bitten the bullet and gone for the full 27001, which is an amazing standard. But yeah, reach out to an expert who can take you through that. But it does take you a lot longer because your procedures have to be a lot more locked down. It's almost like combining ISO 9001 with SOC 2, with HIPAA, with GDPR and various other things. If you got all those things and full accounting controls, then you can get a 27001. So it's basically track what you do, know what you do, monitor what you do, inform how you do it, make sure there's remediation and response to things going out of way. If you have all that, then you've basically got ISO 27001. And then, yeah, so there are various other standards. So NIST is also another good one. So if you're a government company, look at NIST. It is hefty, but it is also, I mean, it's more bureaucratic than any of the other systems, but it's also a fun standard to actually look at. I mean, fun I'm using in the, I'm one of the guys who likes reading standards. So for me, reading a standard is a fun thing to do. NIST is very powerful, has a lot of really good insights, been put together well. There's a lot of overhead with it as well. So it could be cut down and could be simplified. And you could make it slightly less. So it's how do you reduce the bureaucratic overhead, but get the benefits of that system is the main aim. Okay, so let's move on from any questions about compliance from anybody else in the room.
No, I guess we keep moving.
Okay, cool. And then let's go and look at your data protection. So let's go for, so data protection is, the reason why I drew this one out is I want to make sure that we are helping you understand AI is driven by your data. Your data is what drives AI. If you don't have good data, you don't have good knowledge of what you do, AI is not going to work for you. So when you're doing your data protection and you're going to use AI on your data, work out what data you're going to be, you've got to work out what data is going to be part of this process. What data is affected by my organization? What systems do I have? What processes I have? Work out what's affected. Scope and look at that and say, right, what in there do I need to protect? What do I need to do for process control? I need to inform people and give them process control. For data, I need to work out what data I'm exposing. Once you got that sort of worked out and who is affected by that, what is the risk from each of those roles? That gives you your scope. Then you look at your risks arising from that. So let's say you have an intern in your company and you gave them access to your GL. And you basically ask them to do some AI analysis, time series analysis, to do some, let's say, a very, very simple model for prediction on future work. They're going to take that and they're going to take an export from that GL and they're going to shove it into an AI and say, give me a future model or a predictive model based on this data. That's a risk. So how do you minimize that type of risk? Look at your pathways that your data and your processes will bleed out to that will impact your organization. Then once you got that, you then use your risks and your scope to apply remediation. So what controls do I need to put in place? So if it's a database, I want to make sure I have audit logs of who accesses what data and when they access the data. If you're doing exploitation, you want to look at what documents have been sent out via my chat channels. So what are the way people can get chat data out of my system? So if you look at something like Claude, you can actually upload files to Claude in a personal project. That can be accessed by an account outside the computer. So let's say a user sets up their own personal Claude account. They can upload files via the browser and then they can retrieve the files from their home use. That's a loss of control. So you want to make sure, do I want to lock down access to Claude, or do I want to have procedures in place that you cannot upload files on our system? Or if you're using Claude, you can only use our assigned user accounts. You ideally don't want to have shadow IT in the place. You don't want users using their own personal accounts for AI engine to do work, because that is a definite bleed. So that's another pathway. Again, we can help you and guide you on choosing and scoping where these exploitation points are going to happen. And there's some very good security consultants who go into the more detail about some really deep stuff about how to actually identify all that stuff. Then once you've got your remediation pathways, what do you need to actually do to minimize the risks? What do you need to protect? You can then look at saying, okay, fine, let's go to the stakeholders, our DPO, and let's actually go and say, this is what we need to protect. How do we do it? How do we get it? So then you understand what is our risk to our organization if we use AI. I mean, you should be doing this for data anyway, but it's going to give you a way of actually saying, this is where we are, this is what we have, this is where the risks are. Okay, the auditor. So actually, I'm going really slow on this deck. Sorry about that. I'm going to have to speed up a bit because we're 30 minutes in. The auditor, what's the auditor? When you actually got your compliance, an auditor is going to come in and look at your system. He's going to ask you what AI systems you've got in place. What are they accessing? If you don't know that, you're not ready for your audit. Know where your data is, know where your systems are, know where your applications are, know your shadow IT. And if you know that and you can go to your auditor and you're minimizing your shadow IT, you are basically ahead of the game for a lot of people. And if you can demonstrate that to the auditor, then they'll progress to actually looking at how you're controlling it. So the auditor will ask for your policies. He's going to ask for your risk register. Where have you documented that stuff? Your data flow diagrams. Again, tools like Vanta and some of the other compliance tools are going to help you build these frameworks out. And they are beautiful because they actually do track so many things. They integrate in your systems. They can pull up your controls. They can integrate with your ticketing system. They can create tickets in there. They can respond to tickets in there. So some of these compliance tooling are absolutely fantastic. I would not suggest going solo on those things. They are expensive, but the headache they reduce are amazing. And then for technical evidence, they're going to look for, sorry, yeah. So, yeah, they're going to, sorry about that, clicking the wrong place. So they're going to ask for technical evidence as well. So you have something like Vanta or you have some of the tools, you're going to be able to demonstrate that you have these systems in place. And if you've got Azure set up, you're going to have your logging on there so you know who's logging. If you've got AWS, you've got the way of logging in for your CloudWatch and for your other tools to work out who has accepted what. Your PII detection, as long as you've identified what your data, you know who's accessing those various PI systems. And then your disaster recovery again, when things go wrong, when all hell breaks loose, how do you recover? What is our plan? I know some companies have got disaster recovery is this market is not for us anymore. If they go down, they're not going to try and get back into the market again. They'll just drop out the market and they'll go and do something else. That's one level of disaster recovery. That's the extreme form is we're annihilated. We'll give up and go somewhere else. We'll take the money and run. Other companies want to recover. They got things like they're on mission critical work. They're providing medical coverage to people. They have to get up to speed. So your disaster recovery and your testing of how you've done it, prove that you've gone through a disaster recovery and you've done your backups properly, are vital to an auditor as well.